Welcome to the Spirit of VMI Election 2021 series for the General Assembly, House of Delegates elections starting in September 17th, I believe, for early voting through November 2nd, 2021. Today we have with us Tim Anderson from the 83rd District down in Virginia Beach. Tim, how you doing?
Hey, good to be here. Thank you very much. Beautiful day in Hampton Roads. Thanks for having me.
Well, you're welcome. And the whole purpose of these interviews is so that you can get out and inform, first for us, the VMI community, so that we can be, I can understand where you stand on issues that are regarding VMI and the current state of affairs at VMI, but also so you can get your local issues and where your stance on local issues out in the Virginia Beach in your jurisdiction. So hopefully it ends up being a tool for you, a tool for us in a battle management aid, a decision aid for the voters and followers in the VMI community. So we appreciate you doing this, and we hopefully you can get something out of it too. Glenn Youngkin asked me to say this, that it is imperative that we vote early. So we're supporting Glenn Youngkin, Jason Miyares, and Winsome Sears as an executive branch. And so when he asked me to do that, I'll certainly do that. Vote early. It frees up resources and frees up opportunities for those people who vote to then go and help bang the drum and get this thing pushed across the finish line.
And can I weigh in on that too, just for a little talking point?
Sure.
There's three very important reasons to vote early. The first reason is that because we are now voting from September 17th to November 2nd, you want to make sure that nobody goes in and assumes your identity. The Democrats have changed the rules in Virginia, and you can now go and vote with no identification whatsoever. So I've done this. I've walked in with a mask on to the voter registrar's office, told them my name, told them my address, signed a form with nothing else, and then given a full ballot. And we know that there have been people that have had their identity stolen. So if you show up on November 2nd and somebody's already stolen your identity, then you have to prove who you are, and you're given a provisional ballot. So by voting early, that neutralizes the ability for somebody to go in and steal your vote. The second important reason to vote early is that you're going to be geo-targeted by the campaigns to motivate you to get out and vote early. And so if you want to save yourself getting these text messages and having people knock on your doors and getting the mail sent to your house, voting early will take you off of those lists immediately. So the sooner you get out and vote, the quicker you will come off of all of the get out the vote campaigns that will be going on from September 17th to November 2nd. And third, most important reason to vote early is you may die. And so it's important to vote while you're alive. As Republicans, we don't let you vote after death, unlike our counterparts. So it's important to get out and vote while you're alive on September 17th. So please consider September 17th Election Day, and then bring 10 of your friends with you and vote, and then it's over. You don't have to think about it between now and November 2nd.
Yeah, Dan Bongino's 10-10-10 rule. I think it's great, and I love talking with the candidates because I always learn something. And Tim, you just taught me some things, plus a little funny spin on it too. So I appreciate that. We've done an interview already with Mary Margaret Castleberg from the 73rd, Gina Ciarcia from the 2nd. We're planning on doing an interview with Tara Durant, the 28th, JD Maddox on the 45th. We already have that scheduled. Mike Cherry actually tomorrow from the 66th. Mark Early is coming on board for an interview. An endorsement. Chris Hughes, Jason Ballard, just got him on from the from the 12th, I think, down in Blacksburg. Glenn Davis from the 84th, and then Ronnie Campbell from the 24th district as well. So you're going to be well represented by other interviewees, and we'll have a whole pack of these things, and we really hope that they help you out and something you can trot out and use to your advantage. So I'll get right to it here after all this long preamble. When I told you I'd get to it in 10 minutes ago, how's it going? How's the effort going?
I think that we're literally sitting on a balcony in front of the beautiful Chesapeake Bay, and the wind is coming in and is blowing on us from the ocean, from the bay here towards us. The wind is in our back, literally right now, but also politically, the wind is in our back. The Democrats have literally done everything they possibly can do to make a transition season as possible as it can be for conservatives. When we are talking to people that are associated as independents or even soft Democrats, they are not happy with any subject that you would want to have a conversation with them about. And so what's important for us as Republican candidates is to stay on message, to just remind people of what the Democrats have done and where they are going, and just be disciplined and not become our own worst enemy. Conservatives, Republicans are very known to creating circular firing squads. And if the candidate doesn't meet the 100% purity test, then they're not going to support them. But I really hope that those who are understand what is happening in Virginia government realize that the monopoly of Democrat power must shift. We must bring balance back to Virginia government. We must elect our governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney generals. And the House of Delegates is the insurance policy. So the House of Delegates is going to flip. We are going to take it back. And it is the insurance policy against the ability of one-party rule in Virginia. So right now, we are very confident that this race is going to go in our favor. Of course, we're not taking our foot off the gas, but the wind is in our back, and we feel very good about it right now. And
I'm motivated, man. I'm motivated.
And we're picking up big support like VMI support. We were so thrilled to get that endorsement, and thank you so much for that. That is something that just shows that this campaign is coming together with different groups of Virginia that are getting behind us, and we're so thankful to be a part of this.
You bet. We endorsed you and several other candidates. We call them the Big Six on the 19th of August, and we're planning to release another probably 10 to maybe 11 endorsees here within the next week and a half or so before September 17th starts with early voting. So let's get to the real quick VMI stuff. I want to make sure that the VMI listeners here, understand where you stand on a very typical VMI issue. There's a couple of them that I'm going to bury throughout the interview here. Are you familiar with the VMI mission statement and I'll read some of this to you here, that provides advocates of the American democracy and free enterprise system, and shall provide to qualified young men and women education of the highest quality, embracing engineering, science, and the arts, conducted in and facilitated by the unique VMI system of military discipline. Do you have any thoughts about that and your impressions on that and any of the news that you've heard?
Well, news that I've heard as far as the negative news against VMI, is that what you're asking? I mean,
yeah, I think so. I mean, does it impress you? The reason why we asked this question about the mission statement is because there's a confluence of efforts seemingly to change the points of view in education and deteriorating some of the free enterprise nature of what is being taught and expected of cadets at VMI. And then the system of military discipline that VMI undergoes is unique in its own, and that has been under assault as well. And we expect this to be under further assault and erosion in the future. And just wanted to get your idea, if you're aware of how VMI works. It's a little weird. My wife is a William & Mary graduate, and when we started dating, she came and was like, "Wow, this is strange." But then she came to understand, love, and appreciate it. We sent our youngest son there because of the system that he would be able to participate in. So
Yeah.
that is much the reason why the PAC is in existence today. And wonder if people who are not VMI sort of dip people have an impression of what VMI is all about.
Well, so that's a great question, and it's a softball. So here's the thing: there's indoctrination that's happening in colleges and universities throughout the nation, and we've known this. This is not something that has been known unknown. And then what we're seeing here with that indoctrination is a further evolution to where we're now developing students, now even lower in the grade school and high school levels, that kids are being taught to hate their country, and that's just where we are in this moment. And there's this push by those Marxist ideas that want America to essentially be pulled at its fabric core, just pulled apart and reset. That the way to do that is to rise a generation of Americans that hate their country, and you have universities like VMI that breed patriots, that are breeding people that love their country, and that not only just not ideally, but that are willing to write checks payable with their own lives to support the freedoms that we have all enjoyed in previous generations. And so VMI is a threat to the Marxist ideals that are taking over our educational system. And the group think that if you don't agree with us, then we will obliterate and destroy you until you assimilate to our ideals. And so VMI is one of the very few safe havens that we as parents have the opportunity to send our kids to get to send our kids and then get our kids back patriotic, not American hating. And I think that because you all are different than many of the other institutions in Virginia, there's going to be continual attacks on that type of educational setting until we change our leaders in government.
Yeah, we like to think of it as a domino that we're trying to keep up, and having a hard time keeping it up and keeping it upright to stop the fall of the rest of the dominoes. And if we can keep this domino standing erect, then maybe we can slow down or stop the fall of the rest of the dominoes that are having an effect on our.
I think I'm seeing VMI's thing as VMI is good, right? I think that's like your new little slogan and tagline. I think it should be changed to thank God for VMI, because truly that's what this is. And it's not just VMI, but it is VMI schools, VMI professors. The VMI way of life is the fabric of our country. And thank God that there are kids going there and they're coming out and supporting the traditional ideals of what America is supposed to be about.
Man, that's a strong marketing move right there. We're going to have to take that under consideration. We have a call tomorrow night, so we'll talk about that.
Hold on, we're going to go get a trademark real quick. So get this part.
That's awesome. Okay, right to work. What do you think about the right to work? You're aware of the bill that was introduced. Just so without getting into too many specific questions, your thoughts on Virginia's right to work.
So right to work actually doesn't have anything to do with the words right to work. And I think most people understand that. Hold on, there's a little bit of freedom going overhead. I'm just going to let this helicopter pass by.
Nice. Our communications director is a Navy helicopter guy.
Yeah, that's awesome. probably him. So here's what right to work basically what this is about. It's about collective bargaining. It's about whether if I work for a company or an industry, am I going to be mandated to join a union and have to pay that union to represent my interests. Unions, in order for a union to form, it only has to have 51% of the workers agree to that. And so that means that there could be 49% that don't agree with it, but it would be compulsory and mandatory. It's extremely dangerous. Now, the knucklehead that pushed right to work is Lee Carter, a devout socialist, an unapologetic anti-American from Prince William County. Fortunately, even the Democrats realized he's trouble, and they primaried him, and he's now finally going to be retired out of the House of Delegates. But the cancer of this idea is that we should have unions, that those are good. And anybody that thinks unions are better need only look at the states that have these ideas. Michigan, Ohio, they call these states the Rust Belt because these unions have driven wages to a part where the manufacturers are saying, we can't have plants in Michigan. We can't have plants in Ohio. We are moving our jobs to states that have that don't have these policies, and that's why you're seeing states like Georgia flourish because they are adopting that. So there's no state where unions dominate government that are thriving industrially, and we have to remember that. And then if you push that over to the cancer and with teachers and things like that, do you want your teachers to be striking because they didn't get the dollar raise that the union demanded? Is that what you're going to want? Do you want those public service workers not educating your children because the teachers unions didn't get the raise? And so you really have to ask yourself, is this what we want in Virginia? And I hope collectively we would all say no to that, because it is bad for our state, and it will make us less competitive than our neighbors in Tennessee and North Carolina if we decide to do that.
Awesome answer. Thank you very much for that. The next question would have to do with law enforcement, and your opponent, Nancy Guy, is that right? Where would you guys be different on your approach to law enforcement in your district in Virginia Beach?
So the PBA, Police Benevolent Association, had open interviews for any delegates that would want to interview with them. Largest police group nationwide. There's 70,000 members in Virginia alone. And I went to that. Nancy Guy did not. Nancy Guy has been endorsed by anti-police groups that not only are anti-police, but they're anti-prisons. There are groups that believe we should have no prisons in the United States, and that we should be defunding police. Now, she may say, well, I don't support defunding police. But here's the thing. If the KKK called me up and said, hey, Tim, we want to endorse you, I would say, no, thank you. We will not accept that endorsement. So when you accept an endorsement, you are accepting the ideas of the people endorsing you, and you're codifying them into your own platform. We got the PBA's endorsement in one day. The minute I walked out of there, the next morning, we walked out at 4 o'clock from that meeting, and at 9 o'clock the next morning, we had the PBA's endorsement. So there is no candidate in Virginia that is more friend to the police than Tim Anderson. And so the difference between Nancy Guy and Tim Anderson on that issue is night and day. And so when we get in office, we're gonna make sure that the police have incentive bonuses for retention, incentive bonuses for recruitment, that the police have the ability to fill their ranks, that the sheriffs have the ability to fill their ranks. Virginia Beach police are down 12%. That's crazy. The Richmond Sheriff's Office are down 100 deputies. There's 100 less people running the jail. I mean, these are dangerous conditions we're living in, and Nancy Guy wants to accept endorsements from groups that want to defund them. So there's no better contrast on that issue than where we are on this right now. Okay. Going back to VMI, are you aware of the VMI honor system? A cadet shall not lie, cheat, steal, or tolerate those who do. And there have been threats to the existence, the structure, the processes of the VMI honor system. And I don't know if you know enough about it for the finer points to make any remark, but do you think or know of anything that the honor system or the honor code of VMI embraces and uses and practices that it should change in Lexington? 100% no. There's nothing about telling people to be moral and ethical that needs to be changed. That's That's insanity. And I know a little bit about this. We have a couple of private schools here that have a very similar honor code. And you go on their campus and the kids literally have their laptops and they'll literally just lay them down in front of a tree and they'll go play, a game of football or baseball or soccer. And nobody's worried about their things being stolen because there's integrity built in the system. So to tell a university or anybody that you need to have less integrity standards exactly shows you where we are going in Virginia.
Thank you. So a follow on to that, the value of VMI as a resource. Do you think that VMI is worthy of the investment from the state that it gets, and that you would be a leader in making sure that it continues to get money from the state?
I'm going to steal a line from Glenn Youngkin here, but I don't think he's trademarked this one, so I think I can do it without getting sued. There's a sign in North Carolina that says, "Welcome to North Carolina, America's most friendly military state," right? And that irritates him, and that irritates me too, that North Carolina is the most friendly state to the military. We need to have VMI. VMI is essential. We have a major military presence, especially here in Hampton Roads and up in Northern Virginia, that our economy is dependent upon the military. And to have a school that creates students that have love for country and love for service is a critical foundation to continuing to support the military relationship we have. Yes, we should support VMI, and we should endorse the ideas of giving them as many resources as we can to get more students involved, not less.
Thank you. Education, critical race theory in education. Do you have any comments about that? Is
sure.
It happening in Virginia Beach schools, A? B, and what is your impression and or any other educational issues that you may think are worthy of talking about?
Yeah, so critical race theory is this thing that was developed in the 1970s. It doesn't exist. There's no book that says critical race theory and that the teachers have to educate it. But what it is, it's indoctrinated into our system under what's called equity and inclusion. And so if you call up Virginia Beach and you say, "Hey, are you guys teaching critical race theory?" They would say, "No, we're not." But what they are teaching is equity and inclusion, which is a twin sister to critical race theory. Teachers are having to sit through webinars where they are being told, "Of course you're racist because you're white. Of course you're racist because your parents raised you and you were white and you had privilege because of your parents. And if you're Black, you are a victim of your race." America was founded as an inherently racist country. When teachers are being taught this, and now they're supposed to roll that information down to the students, what is that going to breed? Well, that's going to breed the entire group being told America's bad, America's wrong, and it needs to be disassembled and restarted. Second, it's going to tell white kids that you should be ashamed of yourself simply because of your race. And it's going to tell Black kids that you should be victims. You should have a victim mentality simply because of your race. And so that is a cancer that has to be rooted, but we can't just call it critical race theory. We have to address it for how they're addressing it, which is this equity and inclusion policies. These are dangerous policies that are creating a toxic environment at our grade school and elementary school and middle school and high school levels that we have to root. It's a cancer. It's going to destroy. We're going to raise this generation up to hate each other and hate their country.
Speaking of education, mask mandates are coming back out again. What do you think about due to the COVID-19 threat? What do you think about mask mandates in public schools?
So in the public schools, it's a little bit more complicated. So there was a Senate bill that was passed and into law that says schools have to have 5-day mandatory in-person learning. And then it says in that bill that the public schools must, to the maximum extent possible, follow CDC mitigation strategies. That's what it says. And so, so the CDC is recommending that all persons 2 and over, vaccinated or not, have to wear masks in school. And so that's their recommendation. And so we let this law get passed, which is a bipartisan bill, that says that they should follow it to the maximum extent possible. I don't know, as a lawyer, I don't know how you read those words any differently than if the CDC says you should be doing this, you should be doing it to the maximum extent you possibly can do. And so I now realize that Senator Dunavant and the other Democrats who co-sponsored the bill said, well, that's not what the words meant, but it's hard to read those words other than the way they were written. When the school board started saying, hey, we're gonna let parents make this decision, then you saw Dr. Norman Oliver says he uses emergency powers to mandate that all schools, public and private, must have masks. Now, the law didn't change the private school requirements. It was only for public. So he uses emergency powers and says everybody has to do it. And that's an absolute infringement on personal liberty, right of contract, right of education between you and your private schools. And so, the idea all still stems to this very, very fine point, which is your liberty, right? Your liberty. Are you the best person to make decisions for your children, or is the school system? And the Democrats wholeheartedly believe that they are in the best position to decide how your kids will be educated, where your kids will be educated, what they have to do to be educated, and that the parents should have no autonomous authority on these things. You know, the bill and the laws were never you can't wear masks in school. It was just parents should have the right to decide if that's something that they want to do in a segment of the population that has virtually no negative side effects with COVID. In fact, Joe Biden himself, and I just put this on my Facebook page a couple days ago, said children are rarely affected by COVID, and they are really, really rarely affected seriously by COVID. So why does the health commissioner come down and mandate what a private school can do on a group that rarely is affected by COVID, while daycares, there's no mandatory mask on daycares, there's no mandatory mask requirements on higher education. These are only being impressed on the public schools because the government doesn't want parents to have liberty interests in how they raise their children. And that's what this is 100% all about.
Wow. Wholly fundamental difference, Batman. That is amazing.
Which is 100% how certain groups in the world think. That they think that our way is the way of controlling the population rather than individual liberty. That is a dictatorial type of a tyrannical type of government, and it may not feel like a big deal about masks, but it is a big deal because it's about parents being able to decide how and when their kids are educated. And this is just one of another example of them taking away parents' individual decisions of how they want their kids to be affected. We're not talking about Ebola. We're talking about a virus that rarely affects children and very rarely affects children seriously, as said by President Joe Biden 3 days ago.
Yeah. Voter ID, you talked about it a little bit earlier. Do you have any more you want to talk about specifically identification to go to the ballot box and cast your vote?
Yeah. So the Democrats took away photo ID as a requirement to vote because it was racist. It kept groups of individuals based upon their race or socioeconomic status to not be able to vote because they couldn't afford to get the ID. Now, before they changed the law, the Department of Elections allowed the people to go there and get photo identification for free. So that was a false narrative that they had. But what we did over the summer is we did a whole week on what you have to have ID for. To go to the city landfill in Virginia Beach, you have to have a photo identification to dump trash. To go to FedEx and ship a package, you have to have a photo identification to ship a package. To open up a bank account, you have to have a photo ID to open up a bank account. And then most importantly, and this was our biggest thing, if it's true that there's a group of people out there that cannot afford to get an ID and cannot afford to get to the voter registrar to get the free ID, if that population exists, then that population exists in public housing. Those are people that are living under governmental complete dependence of the government. They have no ability to do anything. Well, in order to get public housing in Virginia, you have to have a photo ID. And not only do you have to have a photo ID, but everybody in your house over 18 has to have a photo ID. So for the Democrats to come out and just blatantly lie that this somehow discriminates against any population segment is a flat out lie. And so we have to call them for what it is. It's a lie. And they did it for no purpose of getting people to vote that couldn't vote. They did it to let the system have less integrity. And when there's less integrity, there's more ability to manipulate it by bad actors. And that's what this is about. And we've got to reverse that. The integrity of our elections is the core of our democracy. We cannot have a democracy without there being trust and belief that the elections are free, fair, and the outcome is the outcome.
Thanks for that. And that clears up so much. And there's so many examples of where identification is required that would throw that argument just under the bus. So the last question is, in addition to supporting VMI and making sure that it gets the financial support from the state appropriations, what is it that you think your first three things that you'll take on with your constituency once you're elected?
So for us, our number one hang up is campaign finance reform. My opponent, Nancy Guy, as of the last reporting period, has raised 85% of her money from out-of-state sources. She had $250,000 in the bank at her last reporting period. And so 85% of that came from out-of-state sources. And during the 2019 election, the last week of the election, Michael Bloomberg came in and put $350,000 into the race at the last week of the election. And so what we have to be careful of is making sure that we are not being influenced by out-of-state actors. When candidates are taking money, I'm not saying Michael Bloomberg can't give money to Nancy Guy, but it shouldn't be $350,000. That's insane for a House of Delegates race, but that's our politics. Virginia is the Wild West when it comes to campaign money, and the money that comes in and the control that's coming in is outrageous. Speaker Nancy Pelosi has donated to Nancy Guy, a San Francisco Democrat, Speaker of the House of Representatives, has donated $5,000 to Nancy Guy. That's, she has no business being involved in Virginia politics. So what we want to do is we want to put some limitations on politicians, that the vast majority of their money needs to come from Virginia sources, from people that actually care about Virginia, that are not just trying to install people into elected positions. We think that will make the system work better for both sides of the aisle. The second thing is obviously community safety. The police have to be reinforced. That is the number one crisis we have in Virginia right now, is public safety. They may say it's COVID, but the number one crisis we have is to restore safety to the community. We need to make sure that our parole board is not kicking out violent offenders in operation of law, that they're victimizing offenders and not the actual victims. We have to reset the system and make sure that that the bad guys are the bad guys and the good guys are the good guys. And we are bringing support to law and order in Virginia with without kneeling to those that would cause harm and chaos. And then third, the education system has to be fixed. And the easiest way to fix the educational system, rather than fighting with all the liberals that are entrenched in the Department of Education, is just to create school choice. And by allowing school choice, Virginia, it costs about $17,000 a year to educate one kid. $12,000 of it comes from the federal government. $5,000 comes from Virginia. So we let parents withdraw that $5,000 out of the system. So if I don't like how Virginia Beach is educating my kids, I get to pull that $5,000 out, and then I get to apply it towards an alternative education program that I agree with. Maybe it's parochial, maybe it is private, maybe it's homeschool, but that I get to make a decision of how my tax dollars are going to educate my kids. And then if enough parents are allowed to do that, and they withdraw from the Virginia Beach system, for instance, Virginia Beach now no longer has $1 billion for its budget, and then they will either have to adjust and react to the parents, or they'll have to retract, which is not a bad thing. The private sector can do things better than the government in every way, and there's no reason to think they can't do it better with education. So those are the three things that I want to tackle coming out of the gate. We'll make sure that no more of these false investigations into VMI occur that are government hit jobs. That was ridiculous what happened to you guys. That will not happen. Regardless of who the governor is, we will make sure that the governor doesn't have the authority to create hit jobs on places that he wants to just target for political purposes. But we have a laundry list, but those three top ones are definitely up there for us.
That's awesome. So what I heard here, you heard it here first, is that Tim Anderson is about campaign finance reform, public safety, the educational system, and then protecting and defending VMI. We appreciate that. So I'm going to let you go. I know you have a function and you have great weather out there, and it looks like you're going to have a great time today. We really appreciate your time here. Are there any parting shots that you want to give?
There'll be no better friend of VMI than Tim Anderson. We're going to have your back when we're up there.
Copy that. Vote early, and thank you very much. We've already endorsed you, Tim Anderson, for the House of Delegates 83rd District. Vote Tim Anderson. Thank you very much, sir.